Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm filming a how-to video for contour, highlight, blush, baking, all that sort of stuff. It isn't a set out guideline, it's not what you should do or what you have to do, it's just what I do, so it's just a bit of advice. If you want to see how I do it, then make sure you keep on watching. Okay, so I'm going to jump straight into the video and I'm just going to start to show you how I do my highlight, contour, blush, everything routine. I've already applied foundation. I went with a light coverage foundation because I always feel that if I'm applying highlight and then contour, blush, baking, like translucent powder, it just ends up a bit too cakey for my liking. So I've used a light coverage foundation, but if you want to use a heavy coverage, but if you want to use a full coverage or a medium coverage, that's entirely up to you, but this is just what I chose to use. So I've also done my eyebrows as well, just to make it easier for the purposes of the video. So let's get started. First of all, I will take my Urban Decay Naked Skin weightless concealer to highlight with, and I'm applying that in a triangular shape under my eyes. And then I'm going to apply a small cross on my forehead, a line down the centre of my nose, cross above my lip, and a cross on my chin. So if you wanted to I look so weird. If you wanted to just do under your eyes, you can do that. I choose to highlight the centre of my face as well as my under eye, because I just feel like it ties everything together. And you're not going to look just highlighted just directly under this section of your eyes. So if you want to have a more sort of natural look, obviously it's not natural because you're wearing makeup, but if you want it to look more like the structure of your face that it should be, then I would recommend just adding a bit of highlight just to the central area of your face, because it brings it outwards, and this bit kind of falls back, which is where we're going to contour. And that's like, if you're going for this contoured, highlighted look, that's what you're going to want. You want your front portion of your face to stand out and the side portions of your face to be contoured backwards. So then I'm just taking a damp beauty sponge. You can use a beauty blender, you can use the Real Technique sponge, you can use a brush, you can use your fingers, it's entirely up to you, but this is what I'm going to be using. So then I'm just going to go in and blend all of that out. And I'm blending up towards my temples as well, because it tends to give the eye a more lifted effect, as opposed to if I was to bring it all down this area, it would bring the eye area down. So if you bring it up this way, it will lift the eye area and it'll make you appear more like awake and alert. And then I always just sort of bring it down into my smile line area, because I do tend to crease around that area. I'm just a happy person. So I bring it down into the smile line area and then I set it with powder afterwards. And you want to make sure that you're tapping. If you're using a sponge, make sure you're tapping it, not dragging it. If you're swiping, it's gonna break up the product for a start, and it's gonna move it about everywhere. And also it's gonna move the product into fine lines and wrinkles. Whereas if you just tap it in, it sort of sits on the skin nicely rather than dragging into all of them bits that you don't want to highlight. Like, although we're highlighting under our eyes, we don't want to bring emphasis to small fine lines and wrinkles and that sort of thing. So just make sure that you tap and not drag. So I'm just blending in the centre of my face. Okay, so now that we've blended in all of the highlight, or concealer, or whatever you want to call it, what we're going to do is take what I'm going to do is take the Mercier translucent setting powder, and I'm just going to tap some of this out into the lid because I find that it's easier to work with it that way. So I'm just going to take my damp beauty sponge again, and I'm going to dip into that translucent powder, And then this part isn't baking, I'm just going to set under my eyes with this powder. So you're just pressing that into the areas that you've just highlighted. And then I'm just going to apply a little bit of setting powder onto my actual eyelid itself. Because I find when I apply my foundation, it sort of creases up in the top if I don't set my eyelids. Plus, if you're going to be applying eyeshadows and things like that afterwards, it's going to make it easier to blend those eyeshadows in. And then I'm just going to set in my smile lines. So now that I've set all of them areas, I'm just going to take a little bit more of that Laura Mercier setting powder on a Morphe E42 brush. And I'm just going to pick up a bit of that powder and I'm just going to set the rest of my face with it. And this is just going to make it easier. I mean, if you're doing a cream contour, don't do this step because the powder and contour are not going to go together well. But I like to use a powder contour, and so this just makes it easier for that powder to go onto the skin nicely, because if you just apply your contour, if you're using powder, if you just apply the contour straight on top of your foundation, it's not going to blend out very easily because it's powder straight on top of liquid. So you're better just setting it with some powder first and then going in with the powder contour. Okay, so now I've set my face. What I'm going to do is take my Peaches and Cream Sculpting powder, which is just basically a bronzer. You can use any bronzer that you like for this part. It doesn't have to be this one, it doesn't have to be an expensive one. Just whatever bronzer matches you, whatever you like, whatever you've been using, you can just use that. And then I'm just taking this Morphe, it's like a little angled contour brush. It doesn't have a number on it because it was in the Badger brush set. So I'm just going to pick up some of the product on that. And then starting from my ear here, I'm going to come down in a diagonal line to around about the centre of my cheek, and then I'm just going to stop it there. I'm going to stop the line there. So just like that. And then you can just build it up as much as you want. And then obviously just making sure that you're blending it into the skin. The reason I like to use an angled brush is because I find that it tends to sweep the product. It gets it right in the line where I want it, and then it sweeps the product kind of like to the below it and above it that kind of blends it in. So you can get brushes as well that have a longer brush. They have longer bristles in the centre and shorter on the sides, and that's good for this as well, but unfortunately I don't have one. Now you can create different line shapes with this, so you can bring it more sort of rounded, or you could go a bit higher up with the line. I think the best thing to do if you're going for this sort of look, and this is just my personal opinion, but I think the best thing to do is just to follow your natural cheekbone. So believe it or not, I do actually have the faint lingerings of cheekbones, so I just tend to get the brush right where that should be. And I just follow that line, and I think that the best way to do it is to do a straight line kind of ending around here. If you bring it too close to your mouth, it just looks completely unnatural in my opinion, and I think that a straight line, it cuts the cheek better, so you have more of that angled effect, and it chisels the face down into a more narrow shape. And if that's what you're looking for, then I would definitely recommend the sort of straight angled line. As opposed to the rounded line, which is going to give your face a more like sort of rounded cheek appearance, which if you're like me and you're trying to slim your face down, it's not necessarily the best way to make your face look slimmer. Okay, so now I'm going to do my other cheek. So you can see the difference. You can see that this cheek doesn't really have any depth or dimension to it, and then this cheek you can see where the contour line is sort of, because we've angled it this way, it comes in towards the front of the face and it gives your face that angled sort of look. So we're just going to create the same look on the other side. And then just making sure that as you're doing it, you're blending it all in. Because although we want an angled effect, we don't want a harsh line. We want it to be sharp, but blended kind of sharp, not just cut off kind of sharp. And then I just bring it up slightly towards my temple, but not all the way into the temple. So just to about sort of where my eye corner ends. Okay, so we have the start of the contour done on the cheeks, and then what I do is I just pick up a little bit more, and then I'm going to add it around the sides of my forehead, but not into the temple, because you don't want to, you've already opened your eye area up with that highlight, you don't want to close it back in again, so just to the outer perimeter of the forehead, but then just sort of leaving this area. And contouring the forehead is going to make it appear smaller. I have quite a big forehead, so this is kind of a must for me. If you have a tiny forehead, you can either just apply a little bit just to make it all sort of seamless, or you can just not do it at all if you feel like you really have a small forehead and you don't want to make it look any smaller. So I'm just making sure that I'm sort of blending that into my hairline as well. We don't want to look like we've got a skull cap on. Okay, so then what I'm going to do as well is just apply a little bit of product just on the outer side of my jaw, just to sort of emphasise that jawline. And this is going to make my double chin appear smaller. As with the forehead thing, if you don't have a double chin or you already have an emphasised jawline and you don't want to make it any more emphasised, that's entirely up to you. You don't have to do this step, but it's something that I feel is necessary to bring the whole look together, because otherwise I end up with a slim looking face and then a big double chin. So to me, this is important. So I'm just bringing it towards my chin, but not right underneath. Sometimes I feel like if I put it directly underneath my chin, I end up looking a bit too muddy. So I just apply it towards the chin area and then just stop at the end of the jaw. And then I'm just blending that down into my neck area a little bit as well. Okay. So that's the contour part done. It doesn't end up looking so harsh because we are going to bake it. So that's what I'm going to show you now. This isn't a necessary step when you're doing contour, highlight, etc. But I would recommend it, because what you're doing is you're applying a layer of powder on top of what you've already done. And your skin actually, the temperature increases and it cooks the foundation. Or the concealer or the contour or whatever that you've put between your skin and the translucent powder. So it's actually setting your makeup in place for the whole day. So if you don't want your makeup to move, if you're going to a party, you're going on a night out, I would say definitely try and do this step if you can, if you've got time, if you have translucent powder, because it will make a big difference. It'll make the difference between your makeup coming off in a few hours where you've leaned on it, where you've like leant on your hand, and that will bring it off. But if you put the setting powder on and you bake, it will keep that foundation in place, or that highlight or that contour or whatever. So I would definitely recommend it, but having said that, it's not necessary. I've been doing my makeup for years and I've only recently started doing it. So it's entirely up to you, but I would recommend doing it. So I'm going to take that Laura Mercier setting powder again, and I'm going to take a small cosmetic wedge. I got a pack of these from Tesco. They were £1, £2, something like that, and I got about a pack of 4, I I think, or 6. So they're really cheap, and that's what I use to do this part because I just think it makes it so much easier. So what I do is I take one of the flat sides of the sponge and I've applied the setting powder to it, and then I go underneath where I've contoured, and I go from the ear and I place the wedge against my skin and drag it down in a line, just like that. So then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, just putting the wedge underneath where I've contoured and bringing it forwards in a line. So as you can see, it's not on top of the contour, it's just underneath, so you're just setting that area, and at the same time you're also cleaning up that contour section that you've done, because naturally if you've done a powder contour in particular, sorry I've got setting powder all over me, naturally if you've done a powder contour you will have some fallout, and it may be that it comes down onto this area where you don't want it. So using the translucent setting powder is going to clean up that whole area as well as setting it in place for the whole day. So then what I'm also going to do is take my beauty sponge again, and I'm going to take some more of the setting powder, and then I'm going to bake underneath my eyes. I know I've already set it, but this part is the baking. So you can either set it and do what I did before, and that will keep it in place for a certain amount of hours. Or if you choose to do this step and bake, this will keep it in place all day, because you're doing that process where it's cooking the makeup beneath the layer of powder stuff. So if you want to make sure that your makeup is transfer proof all day, crease proof all day, then make sure you do this step. And then I'm just going to bake my nose, just because I do sometimes have an issue with the end of my nose makeup coming off, because if I blow my nose or I rub it or anything like that, it comes off during the day. So I'm just going to bake that section as well. So then what you're going to do after this point is you're going to apply blush. So I'm just going to wait for the bakage to do its magic. Normally at this point I would do my eye makeup, but that is a whole other video altogether because I'm filming several videos today. So what I'm going to do is just wait for it to bake, and then I will wipe it off and I'll do my blush and highlight to finish the video. So what I'm going to do now while it's still baking is I'm going to take my blush, which is the MAC Sheertone blush in the shade Peaches. And I'm again using my Morphe E42 brush that I used for the setting my whole face with the translucent powder. So I'm just picking up a bit of that. And what I'm going to do is, and this is a trick that I've learned from Jaclyn Hill, what I was doing is applying blush all over my cheeks. So I was applying it right from around here all the way up. And what I've learned from Jaclyn Hill is that if you apply starting around about here, it adds to that contour and it doesn't round off your cheeks again. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to apply it starting from where I've done the contour, and then I'm just going to go upwards into the top of my cheekbone area. And then when I apply my highlight, that's going to go all over this central cheek area. Because when you smile, it just looks really nice, but then you've got the blush and contour on the outer edge of the face to slim it down. And if at this point you're wiping off some of that setting powder, it's fine because you're going to be wiping it off anyway. See how it still has that nice blush effect, but it's just not over the top. It's not like all over your cheeks and making you look like a clown or something. So, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So that's my blush done. So at this point what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that same brush again, but I'm just going to wipe off some of that blush. And then I'm just going to buff away all of that bakage, setting powder, whatever you want to call it, and then we will see how it looks. So you can see it's completely cleaned up this whole section. So we have that sharp angled contour, but it's still blended. It's not just a completely harsh line, but it does just clean up that area. So I hope you can see now that we have the highlighted areas that we've baked, and then we have this sharp contour, which is blended in with the MAC blush. And then what I'm going to do to top it all off is I'm going to take the MAC Soft and Gentle Mineralised Skinfinish to highlight. And for this I'm going to be using the Morphe M497 fan brush, which I've talked about in a favourites video. You need to buy one. And then I'm going to take it all over this centre of my cheek, and then I'm going to sweep it up the cheekbone, and it will just give an overall lifted appearance to the face. So this is completely matte, no highlight, and this is with the highlight. So it does make a big difference. Not everyone is going to be into highlighting. I personally like to glow like the sun with my highlight, as you can see. But it's entirely up to you. You can use it sparingly and just have a sort of minimal glow. So then what I like to do is take a bit more of that highlight and just apply it up here on my forehead, just above my brow bone, but I don't bring it into the centre because I have combination oily skin, so around the edges of my face get quite dry sometimes, but in my T-zone I do get quite oily, so I don't want to put highlight in the centre of my forehead where it's going to draw attention to that, so I just apply it to the outer side. And then the same on the other. And then I take a little bit more, apply it down the centre of my nose, and then to the end of my nose as well. A lot of people don't like doing this because they don't like drawing attention to the nose if they don't like it. I personally don't have an issue with my nose, so slap that highlight on there, bitch. Cupid's bow, which is going to give the appearance of fuller lips. And then I always do it on my chin as well. Again, not everyone does this, or not everyone will want to do this if they don't like the chin or whatever. I personally just think it draws everything together because I've now got highlight all in the centre of my face. So I'm now officially like a beacon of highlight. Again, you can go less heavy with the highlight, you can use a more subtle highlight, you can just use a lighter hand. It's entirely up to you, but I just like the strong contour kind of look. And then don't forget to wipe off your foundation lips. So that completes this contour, highlight, blush, baking, whatever you want to call it, tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found something informative in it that you didn't know already. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, share and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Oh my god, I'm glowing! I'm glowing! Wow. Hey! Look at me, I'm so skinny!